How would you describe your relationship with your parents? From some of the things that I've heard you say, it seems like you kind of had a very tumultuous relationship with your mom, but I don't really hear you talk about your dad as much.
Yeah, well, listen, my dad always made me feel like his son and his pride and joy, and he was like he played the good guy, right? He would make me feel loved. I'd be with my father on the weekend. He'd pick me up. He'd take me to like the video store, the baseball card store, buy me baseball cards, buy me. Oh, you want that Don Mattingly card? Don Mattingly was my favorite player. Get that. You get the iron on. You do the good things that a dad should do with his son. Play catch for 20 minutes with me, and then be like, all right, I got to go to the card game now, and and then some guy from the card game will come out and play catch with me. Like probably some guy who's a connected dude who I didn't even know at the time was, and some fucking made man is teaching me how to throw a curveball. So I had that connection with him, but he was very into his what he was doing. But then at night he'd take me to Whitestone in Queens, from Brooklyn to Whitestone, and with his he remarried, got with the new chick that he was with, and he stayed with her for 40 something years. And her son, her son would stay with her father on the weekend, so I was able to stay in his room on that Saturday night, right? And then me and my father would bond. We'd watch a boxing match and we'd watch movies or something like that together. But it was so I always thought growing up that my father was the good guy, when my mother was the disciplinarian and the Sicilian strict mother who went through hell, being a single mother working 2-3 jobs. But I rebelled because she was always disciplining me. So I get that. I get that now. I get that now that she went through fucking hell. And my father, I would come home with not a money in my pocket from his friends and the thing, but then my father might not pay child support that week. Maybe that happened. And my mother would be like, yo, what's up? Chris needs this, that. So I had hand-me-downs. I had, all sorts of shit when I should have had more. If my father wasn't doing good gambling that week, she might not have got child support. But if he had a good week and he hit the number or something like that, she might get 500. So it was very, it was. But my dad, I love my dad. We talk baseball every fucking. So anytime I spoke to my dad, it was something I liked. Anytime I spoke to my mother, it was usually disciplinary in school. You got to do this, you got to do that, you got to like disciplining me. So obviously I rebelled. I didn't want to hear that shit. As a kid, I want to go out. Now she had me also, because of working 3 jobs, I was a private babysitter for my little brother. I never resented my little brother. I loved him. But I resented my mother for making me babysit when I wanted to go do whatever I wanted to fucking do. You know what I mean? And then once I became 16, I had my own crew and shit in the street, and we're bad kids. We ended up being tough, bad kids that did a lot of bad shit, but we were also respectful to elders in the neighborhood. We were kind of raised with the same discipline, strict maybe Italian parents or whoever. Like I had obviously Puerto Ricans in my crew and different people in my crew, but it was very very much like 80s dads and 80s moms. So they were strict, or they were from broken homes, and so all the kids were a little fucked up in the head. So and then we came up in a time of like those type of movies. Okay, we're going into the video store. We're like our older cousins renting whatever the fuck we want to rent. So at 8 years old, I'm going over Anthony's house and we're watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Or I'm going over my father. My father drops me off by my uncle's house, and my uncle, from being out all night, is sleeping all day in the bedroom, and I'm in his living room watching WrestleMania 2 tapes and jumping off the fucking chairs. And then the next thing I'm watching is 3 on a meat hook with people getting chopped up to bits and putting on, girls getting put on meat hooks naked. So, and I'm 8 years old. So I'm getting exposed to all this type of stuff. But I loved being with my dad because I couldn't do that with my mom. Couldn't do that shit. I was able to do all the taboo shit.
I saw in your bio on your website, it said you experienced inhumanity firsthand at a young age. What did you mean by that?
So people getting killed, like fucking jumped, beat downs, like just whether we don't want to incriminate ourselves with anything, like on live.
Right, absolutely.
But my my crew, sometimes we had to do what we had to do, you know. So it's just, I look at it like that now. Maybe karma, you know, like sometimes karma takes over and things happen, and maybe, you know, the struggles in your life, or maybe me not being where I want to be with certain things, even in hip hop. Maybe it's because every time I do something good, maybe something bad happens, and I feel like that's the constant um, good and evil and the chi of life. You know, so a lot of the things we did growing up, we might have learned our lessons for. We might have did things we're not proud of now, or stuff that maybe I wouldn't take back because it made me who I am now. And I feel like I'm a man with convictions now. So and I'm raising my daughter the right way. So but but yeah, I mean, we did a lot of fucking crazy shit, and we've seen a lot of crazy shit. You know, like and we've seen people die. We've seen, you know, it's just just shit
And
like that.
we definitely don't want you to talk about, you know, anything incriminating, of course, you know what I'm saying? That's not to get down over here at all.
Yeah, there was a
But,
lot of, you
you know,
know, there was a lot of
to
violence.
witness those type of things though,
Well,
it's very traumatizing, especially for someone at a young age, learning how to process that kind of thing, right?
so it's a different. Every decade is kind of a different. It changes drastically from decade to decade. As you can see, like, you ever see these memes on Instagram and wherever, like, oh, '90s kids be like, or '80s kids be like this, and then, like, you
Right.
know, and they show how, like, the different, like, reactions and mannerisms of different people from different decades. And you know, we grew up in the '70s and '80s fucked up. You know, with broken homes, a lot of violence, a lot of dads not being there, or abusive dads. My dad wasn't abusive to he was very respectful and never hit a woman. But a lot of people in my neighborhood, you'd see that. The mothers all beat up. You know, the kids all beat up. Kid would come out with a broken arm on some shit. We're like, what happened? I fell. You know, my name is Luca type shit, like the song. You
Right.
know, so you know, abusive shit. And then this, like I said, the kids would come out and have issues that they never were. It wasn't like nowadays. They would just put them on Prozac, or they put them on fucking some kind of, you know, Ritalin, or they you know, get therapy. Nobody had money for fucking psychiatrists. So these kids, they get psychopaths roaming the streets. You know, the little psycho kids, brewing psycho kids, hurting animals, doing shit. And oh, that's that dude in the neighborhood. There goes Zach. Stay away from fucking Zach. He's a psycho. You know, he cut off his fucking boa constrictor's head. You know, wild shit like that. We weren't in a rich neighborhood. So we were like, you know, it was borderline. So we had we had the one mob family on the corner that had this nice house with gates and shit like that, and then everybody else was like, you know, lower. And then, like, down the block was Left Rack City. So we go to the Queen Center Mall to get starter caps, and we'd had to deal with people trying to rob us. You know, on some, you know, 13-year-old kids from Left Rack with guns, so trying to rob you for your starter jacket. So, you know, like crazy shit. And bro, I'm gonna tell you straight up, I've been in knife fights, like all sorts of crazy, wild shit over people trying to rob, people trying to think, like, people thinking that was, you know, that shit was sweet, and whatever, and wild stuff. Like, I was in a box cutter fight one time with this kid pulled out those orange box cutters. I think he was a Latin King. You know, he had the beads on. I don't know if it was, you know, I don't want to misspeak. I don't know if it was Latin Kings, Nietas. It was one of these dudes with the beads on and shit. And he tried to rob me by the overpass for my, like, Jansport backpack, right? and he pulled out a box cutter, and you know, I put my hands up. I was actually I was learning how to box at the time, and I was able to, like, you know, move away and stuff. But he caught me on my pinky because my hands were up, and I didn't even know I was cut, and the fucking blood was squirting out like crazy. And I was like, oh shit, because, you know, when you get cut with a box cutter, you don't really feel it. Your adrenaline's going, and all of a sudden you see blood squirting out everywhere. So I was able to snap off a car antenna, like the old school car antennas, like from the Oldsmobile, you know, like the metal car antenna. So I'm backing up, moving out of the way from this fucking box cutter, and I snap off the car antenna. And now I got like a range weapon that's like a whip, you know. And I'm fighting this fucking guy, and he's trying to stab me with the box cutter or slice me, and I'm hitting him on the fucking knuckles of the hand that has the box cutter, and I'm whipping him with the you know, the car antenna. And I noticed that, like, now he ain't he ain't trying to fucking attack me no more. You know what I mean? He's getting whipped with this thing on his hand, and, you know, I was just using my environment and fighting. And then he was like, yo, you got it. That was like a term back in the day where like, you won. I ain't trying to fight
Right.
you. You got it. And I'm like, yeah, well, then get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like, like back up. So it was like I was put in that situation. I had to do what I had to do, and and then I started making homemade weapons, and I used to tie souvlaki skewers. You know what a souvlaki skewer is? I don't know
Yeah.
if you know what that is. So it's got the hole in it with the metal rod, and it's a pin at the end, and I'd fucking attach it to like a chain with two of them and swing that shit around like a medieval weapon. So a motherfucker would come out, I'd have that shit on my belt. And I'd pull it out, what the fuck did you say? And I'd fucking swing the shit around and catch you and chop your shit. So and they knew, people started to know, like, man, this guy's, don't fuck with him. You're gonna get hit with something, a meat cleaver. He's carrying shit. And he's not afraid to get you. I'm gonna catch you with it. So I went from an outgoing kid that wanted to play with everybody. Yo, go play with that kid. Like as we alluded to earlier, go play. Go make friends. Go make friends. And you try to make friends, and they're psychos, and they want to bully you, or they're friends with you because their friends aren't around. And in a minute their friends come, they beat the shit out of you, and they start fucking with you. It's like, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? We were just playing. We were playing G.I. Joe, and your friend came over, and now you're breaking my G.I. Joe. Like, what the fuck is going on? And I couldn't make sense of it. So I started to get angry, chip on my shoulder. And then, and also I knew from my father, don't rat, like, don't be a rat. So I'd hold all of it in. And then eventually I started getting a lot of respect in the street for holding my own and standing up to these fucking guys. And they'd be like, oh, Chris is crazy. Chris is crazy. And I'm like, nah, I'm not really crazy. I'm just standing up for myself and standing up for you, you fucking pussy. If everybody would stand up for ourselves, we have 15 of us now. We all play baseball together. Get the baseball team and we'll all beat the shit out of them with baseball bats. And we'll see if they're going to keep fucking with us. But they wouldn't do it. They would run and we'd divide. And that's how big government divides and conquers. They separate us through fucking propaganda, racism, different fucking things. If they could separate us and make us hate each other and think that we're so different, that's how they fucking take over. So I was always like, no, if we separate, we're weak. But you know what? I won't be weak if we separate. I'm going to be by myself and I'll stand on my own too. If they fuck me up, they fuck me up. They kill me then. Whatever. Then maybe that'll make the difference. Maybe all you guys will fucking know. Maybe we should have stuck together because now we lost our strongest fucking link. Because Hyde, Chris got killed in the heat of battle sticking up for us because we were too pussy. So I don't know. I had a warped way of thinking. I have a warped way of thinking when I write my music. I have a warped way of thinking when I think outside the box a little bit. But a lot of people think I'm crazy, and I don't believe I'm crazy. I have my views. I stand by them, and I'm very steadfast when it comes to that type of shit. I'm very stubborn. They say old school Italian, Sicilian. Stunad is a thing, and stubborn, like being a bull, you fuck with the bull, get the horns type thing. I was very butt heads. If you don't agree with and my mom was like that, and my dad was like that. If you don't agree, we're going to just keep butting heads until somebody fucking goes backwards. So, and that's why when you were talking about, the thing with my mom, and that's what we did. We butt heads until I had to leave the house. It became bad and not good for my little brother and not a good influence for my little brother. So, we agreed to for me to live in a car for a while. It was, I was 16 years old and I couldn't even drive it. And I bought a $500 car for my cousin and I was delivering pizza with a driver's permit. It was an old Italian dude who owned the pizza place and I had to make some money. So he was like, give me your driver's license. So I gave him the permit and he photocopied it and didn't even look that it was a permit. So I'm delivering fucking pizza, making money in a car with no license and no insurance, just a car I bought from my cousin who gave it to me, signed the title over with no license, no insurance, and a driver's permit, delivering pizza, making $500 on a weekend on a Friday, like delivering pizza. That's how sick shit was. And obviously doing other stuff, like, other stuff that we won't incriminate to make money.
Right.